Emily is so lucky to have such a beautiful mother. It's really unfortunate that Sarah takes after my wife. My husband, constantly belittling our daughter and me. Always praising his niece, never our daughter. The biggest disappointment is really you. It's time to make him understand. My name is Jessica. I'm a working mother in my late 40s. My daughter's name is Sarah. She's a busy senior at her middle school, studying hard for her entrance exams. My husband, John, is also in his late 40s and works as an employee. As a supervisor, he often complains about the stresses of his job when he gets home. I tolerate his complaints because of his work stress. But that's just the beginning. John tends to take out his frustrations on his family. He openly insults our daughter and me. He routinely says that the food I prepare is tasteless. He says it every time he eats. But he eats them all. After meals, he complains about the house not being clean. He runs his finger along the window sash and says, "Dust. Do it over." It's like living in an old TV drama. Finally, you're useless and a disappointment as a wife. Criticizing how I do the dishes, which is beyond frustrating. But it doesn't stop there. John says terrible things to our daughter as well. Despite being his own child, he criticizes everything she does. At her age, it's normal to care about her appearance, but if she changes her hairstyle, he says, it doesn't suit you. If she joins an extracurricular activity, he says, quit that useless activity. Even if she gets good grades, he says, is that all you got? Do better, never giving her any praise. Whenever he speaks, comfortable family time becomes the worst. Sarah and I have had enough of him. One day, we visited my in-laws during a long weekend. My husband's older brother and his family live with his parents. We rarely visit them. My brother-in-law is a kind and nice guy. Their only daughter, Emily, is also a senior at her middle school like Sarah, and she's a very nice girl too. Sarah and Emily get along great. However, there's a problem in this family too. It's my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law's wife. Her name is Jennifer, and she's stunning, like a model. It's hard not to wonder why she married my ordinary-looking brother-in-law. But she has a very strong personality. Too strong. She often makes degrading comments about me. Jessica, you're really bad at makeup. Oh, wait, maybe you just look shabby no matter what. I get told I'm beautiful even without makeup. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Those are her least harmful comments. The other day, I lost weight again. I can eat anything and not gain weight. Jessica, you've really put on weight. What are you eating to get that way? I got asked to be a model while walking downtown. It's such a hassle to turn those offers down. You don't have to worry about that, Jessica. Lucky you. I was mistaken for my daughter's sister the other day. So embarrassing. Jessica, you always look like a mom, which is great. She throws out these insults effortlessly. Jennifer is really beautiful and has an amazing figure, I admit. Her stories are probably true. But does she have to put me down every time? Whenever she makes a comment, my brother-in-law gets angry and says, how can you say such things? That's so rude, but it's like talking to a wall. Jennifer just laughs and says, but it's true. I can tolerate that much and laugh it off. But, sometimes her comments elicit unexpected reactions. What the heck? My husband turns on. That's right, Jennifer. Jessica is really unattractive. How can he say that when his own hair looks like a QR code? Jennifer's daughter, Emily, has taken after her mother's beauty. Though she's the same age as my daughter, Sarah, she looks much older, more like a high school or even college student. Emily is stylish and beautiful, and Sarah adores her. Thankfully, Emily's personality takes after her father. She's kind and considerate and never looks down on Sarah or me. She's beautiful and nice, the total package, says Sarah excitedly. Emily is not just a beloved cousin but also a role model for Sarah. Thanks for Emily, Sarah has become more polished. She doesn't put on makeup yet, but she's gotten stylish with her hair without breaking any school rules. She probably spends at least 30 minutes in front of the mirror each morning. Thanks to this, she no longer oversleeps. My in-laws are good people, and I don't mind visiting their home where they live with my brother-in-law and niece. But it's my sister-in-law and husband's attitudes that bother me. Neither my brother-in-law nor I can get through to them. Is there any way to change the two with the sharp tongues? Before I could come up with a good idea, we ended up visiting my in-laws again. Jessica, you look older. You have more wrinkles than I do. If we walk together, people will think I'm younger. It was just 3 minutes after we walked in the door. Jennifer started with her usual self-praise and insults. This is going to be another depressing visit. Jessica, are you taking care of your skin? Don't skimp on moisturizer. When I go to the cosmetics counter, they always say my skin is so firm and beautiful. Is this how it's going to be today? I turned my attention to the girls to escape. Sarah and Emily, both are the senior at their middle school, were studying for the entrance exams together. Since they just started their last year of middle school, this would likely be their last visit before getting busy with exam prep. We planned to skip holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas, so they wouldn't meet again until they were in high school. That's why Sarah came along today. I peeked at their notes without disturbing them, only to see incomprehensible numbers. I could help up until elementary school, but studies for middle school are beyond me. Did I really study this stuff? It seemed Sarah was teaching Emily. I remembered that my daughter was good at math, and as I casually watched, I saw my niece looking at her with big, sparkling eyes. Wow. Sarah, you're such a good teacher. I always struggled with math, but this is the first time I really understood it. You're better than my teacher. Being praised by her beloved cousin, my daughter didn't seem to mind at all. She blushed with pleasure and scratched her cheek, saying, "It's no big deal." But not everyone was pleased. Jennifer, who always thinks she and her daughter are the best, had to interfere. Let me see. Oh, of course, a plain girl is good at plain studies. And there's a person who nodded in agreement. My stupid husband. Yeah, Sarah might not look great, but at least she's good at studying. Not that it helps much, she's hopeless. Exactly. Is Sarah really related to Emily? Well, Emily's cuteness comes from me. With a mother like Jessica, there's no way her daughter could be pretty. Hey. That's enough. Just as my husband and sister-in-law started to get carried away, my brother-in-law intervened. His face was red with anger. But my husband and sister-in-law ignored him. Instead, my husband pulled out his wallet. He took out a $50 bill and handed it to Emily. Emily, you're really beautiful. You're definitely going to be a winner in life. Here's some allowance from me. You're also modest and kind. Sarah. You should try to be a bit more fashionable instead of just studying. Not that it would help. Considering your mother has always been hopeless at such things. Hearing such horrible things from her aunt and father, tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. But my husband continued to praise Emily and belittle Sarah, ignoring her distress. Emily is so lucky to have such a beautiful mother. Poor Sarah is stuck with a mother like hers. Emily is so happy to look like her mom, while Sarah got stuck looking like her mom. What a difference. Sarah's eyes pleaded for him to stop. Unable to voice her pain, she could only look at him with tear-filled eyes. But my husband ignored her, continuing to compliment Emily and put down Sarah along with my sister-in-law. Enough already. At that moment, I surprised myself with how loudly I shouted. Seeing my daughter in tears pushed me to my limit. I silently took Sarah's hand and left my in-laws' house. I was furious, absolutely furious. I'll never forgive them. We usually stayed one night at my in-laws, but after this, there was no way we would. As soon as I got home with Sarah, both my mother-in-law and brother-in-law called repeatedly. They apologized profusely, but they weren't to blame. I could hear my in-laws trying to say something to my husband, their son. Probably scolding him. But he just laughed it off. As for Jennifer, my sister-in-law, it's up to my brother-in-law to handle her. But my husband is different. Instead of following us home, he stayed overnight at his parents' house. Sarah and I discussed it and made a decision. The night after our visit to the in-laws, my husband finally came home. I'm home, he said nonchalantly as he walked in. Of course, I didn't say anything. I only greeted him with silence. As expected, he was smiling nonchalantly. Grinning foolishly, he looked around the living room. Is Sarah in her room? Sarah isn't here, I replied. He checked the clock and frowned. She's not back yet? It's already 10 at night. Even for tutoring, it's too late. In response to my husband's words, I exaggerated a sigh, and stood up from the couch. On my way to the fridge, I casually said to him, she's not here anymore, and opened the refrigerator. What? My husband tilted his head, not understanding what I meant. Noting his confusion out of the corner of my eye, I opened a can of beer. The satisfying sound of opening the can echoed through the room. What do you mean she's not here? Did she go to a friend's house? I mean exactly what I said. She's not living here anymore. What? Huh? What do you mean? I don't get it, my husband said, completely baffled. I mean she's gone because she doesn't need a horrible father like you, I replied. What? Gone? Where did she go? How should I know? I said nonchalantly. How can you be so calm about this? Aren't you her mother? I'm just a disappointing mother, remember? Hey. That was just a joke. Who would take that seriously? A joke. I couldn't hold back any longer and slammed the can into the sink. The dull sound echoed through the room. I glared at my husband. A joke is something everyone can laugh at. What? Why are you seriously angry? Nobody laughed at your so-called jokes except you and Jennifer. How was that a joke? Well, that's because you guys are too uptight. What kind of joke makes your own daughter cry? I thought it might motivate her. No child in the world is motivated by that. But. Shut up. No more excuses. You've done enough to be abandoned by your daughter. Abandoned? Sarah would abandon me. That's why she has gone. No. Didn't he really understand how serious his actions were until it was pointed out to him? It's pathetic. With a pale face, my husband grabbed my arm. I coldly brushed it off. What should I do? I don't know. Maybe if I apologize, she'll forgive me? This is the result of over a decade of your behavior. It's not that simple. He seemed to realize the meaning of my words. Speechless, he finally said, I'll go find her, and rushed out. At the very least, he's worried that his daughter has gone. Despite all the horrible things he said to her. But it's too late. After he left, I went to my room and grabbed my bag. It was a large bag, like I was going on a trip. Most of our things had been sent earlier by courier. Only the essentials remained, but it was still a lot. I picked up the bag and left the house. Seeing that my husband was gone, I went to the main street and hailed a taxi. Go to. What's going on? Why are your things gone too? That was the first thing my husband shouted when he called. I held the phone away from my ear to avoid his loud voice. After letting him vent, I put the phone back to my ear and said, Of course my things are gone, I moved them. Moved them? Where? His loud voice made me pull the phone away from my ear again. Because of the hassle, I switched to the speaker. I placed the phone on the table, took a sip of coffee, and said, There's no need to say where. Anyway, I'm leaving too. Good luck living on your own. What? Are you kidding me? Do you think you can just do this? Aren't you happy to be rid of your disappointing wife? Ugh. You're so stubborn. I told you it was a joke. Still calling it a joke? Just as I was about to raise my voice at my unrepentant husband. Dad, your jokes aren't funny at all. You can't make people laugh by hurting your daughter. Sarah shouted from beside me. He was shocked to hear that. He shouted in a panicked voice, Sarah. Are you there with your mom? Of course, I am. Mom and I are at Grandpa and Grandma's house, she replied. Grandpa and Grandma's? You mean at Jessica's parents' place? Yes, that's exactly where we were. Sarah and I had gone to my parents' house in the neighboring district. I understand, I'll come get you now. Let's talk things out, okay, he said and hung up. Fine. But I wondered if he was ready to have that conversation. I thought as I glanced behind me. About 10 minutes later, my husband arrived in a car. And he became speechless. Why is everyone here? His shock was understandable. At my parents' house were my parents, his brother, and even Jennifer and Emily. This group rarely gathered outside of major family events. He was at a loss for words in front of everyone. I smiled to my husband and pointed to the floor. Why don't you have a seat right here? It was in the center of a circle formed by me, my parents, my brother-in-law, my in-laws, my daughter and my niece. Here. Yes, right here. Faced with my firm smile, he reluctantly sat down with a strained expression. Meanwhile, Jennifer was sitting alone outside the circle. So, do you have anything to say? I'm not at fault. Is this the mouth that tells jokes? I pinched his cheek hard. Ouch, he yelped. Rubbing his reddened cheek, he said. Because it was a joke. Is this the mouth that tells jokes? Ouch, ouch, ouch. Just as I lost my temper with my husband's ridiculous attitude, I handed it over to my parents. They began to speak. John, what do you think a family's role is? As the head of the family, shouldn't you be protecting them? I was protecting them. Is mocking your daughter and wife your way of protection? Do you even love Sarah? Of course. With overflowing love. Criticizing her daily and comparing her unfavorably to others, is that your overflowing love? Ugh. My husband was at a loss for words under my father's glare. Then my in-laws spoke up. What a foolish son we have. What? My husband was shocked by their harsh words. But my in-laws didn't stop. We must have raised you wrong. How else could you turn out so foolish? But dear, our eldest turned out just fine. It's clear that this one is rotten to the core. Yes. You always look down on others. We constantly warned and scolded you, but you never listened. What a disappointing son. What? You don't have to go that far. Who are you to say what's too far? You called your wife and daughter disappointing. Eep. You can't even imagine how terrible it feels to be on the receiving end of such words. You're truly a disappointment. Sorry. I'm sorry. You should apologize to them. Not us. Yes. Sarah, Jessica, I'm sorry. It was my fault. Finally, my husband apologized deeply to my daughter and me. But I had no intention of forgiving him. Especially, I'll never forgive what he said to our daughter. I glanced at Sarah to see her reaction and saw a blank, emotionless face. Her father's apology clearly hadn't touched her at all, and I couldn't help but smirk. My husband noticed too. Sarah. I know I also was wrong. What do you mean also? Sarah finally spoke, her voice low and cold. My husband's face turned pale. So, you think it's my fault too, don't you? Because I'm such a disappointing daughter? No, I mean, you prefer Jennifer and Emily over Mom and me, right? No, it's not like that. We're just the disappointing wife and daughter, right? Well. You know, I'm disappointed to have you as my father. Ugh. I don't need a disappointing father like you. If you like Emily and Jennifer so much, go live with them. What? No, My husband panicked. Then Emily spoke up. I wouldn't want to live with such a disappointing uncle. What? He was taken aback by his niece's words. But Emily didn't stop. How could you insult your wife and daughter while doting on your niece? Calling your own family disappointing, that's truly disappointing. I'm sorry. I don't need your disappointing apology. I hate both you and my mom. I also don't want to see the two of you. My sister-in-law's eyes widened in shock. Emily? You hate me too. Mom, even when Dad scolded you, you just made excuses. You never admitted you were wrong. Ugh. Both Mom and Uncle are the worst for saying bad things about others. Do you really think you're good people? You're just poor in spirit. To me. Both of you are the absolute worst, the most disappointing people ever. My sister-in-law slumped at those words. And my husband, too, dropped his shoulders when Sarah said, I hate you too, Dad. So, here's the deal. I said to wrap things up. Sarah and I will live here at my parents' house. She won't need to transfer schools and can take the bus. The high school she wants to attend is closer from here, so there's no problem. What? You're not coming back until she starts high school? Not until she starts high school. Are you saying you want a divorce? Well, that depends on your actions from now on. It seemed he had never considered the possibility of being abandoned by his family. He looked pale and hung his head. After that, my sister-in-law was sternly reprimanded by her husband. He had finally reached his limit with her behavior, and they decided to live apart. In other words, she was kicked out of the in-laws' house. With her own parents deceased, she had no place to return to and would have to live on her own from now on. My sister-in-law was reportedly very shocked, but I doubted she'd change. She'd likely end up getting divorced. Emily was quite happy that her mother was leaving. She smiled and hugged Sarah, saying, let's stay close, okay? As for my husband. For a while, he called and messaged daily with apologies, but after I told him it was annoying, he backed off. He had ignored everything I said for years, so it's too late to start listening now. He is paying for our living expenses and child support, so he should continue to show his sincerity. Though, it's doubtful if he'll be able to attend Sarah's wedding. As for Sarah, she's thriving without her father's constant criticism. Seeing her smile more often makes me happy too. I've started working and am enjoying my days. At this rate, we might not need the money from my husband anymore. I thought what this implies is, and smiled to myself.